先请洪先生。
我们都知道说你本身经过父母离异，然后还有必须重考，然后另外一个就是公司倒闭没有钱，你会怎么帮助那些可能跟你有过同样经验的人呢？如果你当选的话。然后另外一个问题是给唐先生，你觉得在政府政策方面有哪一点是值得改进的？你会怎么做？
要如何协助经历不同遭遇跟挫折的一个人，要看他个人的背景而定，不是每个人的情况都是一样。你不可以有一个固定的模型说好，你根据这些条件，你符合了这些根据我所做的一些步骤，你将会很顺利的就度过难关。这未免太过轻描淡写，他需要做到的东西，需要非常努力的去考虑到我需要在生活上面做出什么样的改进，在努力方面我需要去如何去克服一些困难。这个并不是说有一定的步骤或者一定的 SOP 可以每个人去同样的去实行。首先呢，当然是要深感同受，了解他所经历的一些困难跟困境。其次呢，就是要找寻如何将社会现在所拥有的资源跟协助方案直接的传到他手上去，让他短期之内呢能够尽快的度过一个过渡期的难关。接着呢，最主要就是要放手，让他自己站起来，能够继续往前去前进，不要一直依赖着靠着别人扶着他，协助着他，摆在旁鼓励他。你可以勉励他，不过呢，最重要的就是要引导他走回新加坡所拥有可能给他的一些机会跟生机。
我的华语不是很流利，我用英语来回答你呢，原谅我。When I look at the government policies, and I think you've heard my views on the core values and the policies that underpin successes, I don't think those need to be shifted. I think that we have a strong, decisive PAP government. I feel it is nimble. I feel it's able to react to changes in the environment. And it is, as I said earlier, very useful if the government could pay heed to consultation with the people when implementing significant policy changes. For myself, what I would like to achieve, I would like to make sure that when I get elected and I'm into Parliament, my first task really is to understand the needs of my residents, bring it down to that local level. And because I'm new, I think it's very important that I earn the trust and respect of the residents, even after the elections are over, because that's really the first task of a Member of Parliament, to represent the views of the people and to make sure that gets reflected to the government if necessary. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ken from MediaCorp News. I have two questions for Dr. Ng and one question for the candidates. First of all, Dr. Ng, over the years, have you actually seen any changes in PAP selection process so as to attract these more creative, critical thinkers into the ranks of the candidates? In other words, have there been actually any adaptations made to the selection process at the tea sessions? Also on the topic of selection and candidates, recently there have been some doubts and concerns in the public circle about the youngest candidate that the PAP has introduced to date in terms of political maturity and experience. How would you allay these concerns in these circles? And Mr. Tong, you have mentioned that it's very important to adapt some of the PAP's policies to cater more to the needs of young people, the new generation. Are there any specifics that you could elaborate on, as well as the other candidates? How do you feel about this? Thank you.
The most powerful, most productive agent of change is from within. And the fact that we induct 1/4 of your parliament with sometimes barely a disruption is a political phenomenon. Very few countries can do that. So we have more senior MPs who are by no means beyond their prime. Many of them can actually have many years and strong legs to continue doing house to house, but who voluntarily step down because they believe in this process of renewal, because they themselves, like we, came in when others stepped down. And it is not imaginable that you can bring in people who think exactly like you, even though they're 20 years younger. If you look at these three, they were born in the post-independence Singapore. They grew up with different perspectives. They saw Singapore they have different memories of it. They saw the world in a different memory. They listened to different songs. They have different images. And they are different. So the processes for selecting candidates will be the same, but the candidates are different. And I think it's singular strength of our system that we can bring in such a diverse slate of candidates, not only in terms of perspectives, but age ranges. From the very young to the not so very young, as new candidates. When we bring in young candidates, yes, as I think Vikram and other young candidates who we are going to announce will say that they too are daunted by the fact that they are young. But if you look at how our previous candidates who were brought in their sometimes late 20s, early 30s, I would say on balance they have been a very useful feature of our political renewal, because they bring in first-hand perspectives from that generation. They may not be completely representative of that generation. I mean, that's too much to ask. But, you know, the way they respond to social media, I can tell you, are completely different from the way I would. And I think you need the perspectives, whether it's social media or their views, and you can ask Vikram, you know, his views on certain things. And we see it firsthand. So my main point is our processes remain the same, but the raw materials have changed. And I think that's in keeping with the need to renew ourselves when the future changes and you have people who are in sync with their generation. And that's our, if you like, our response towards a changing future, bringing in people who believe in the same core values but may not necessarily react in exactly the same way as a different group of a generation of leaders, because they start from a different viewpoint and they grew up differently, but they still maintain the fundamentals. So continuity amidst change is the trickiest aspect. How do you keep a car moving while changing the tires?
I'll answer your question. In my household, I've got 3 young children. Some of the best ideas from my household come from my children, and my youngest is 5. So from that perspective, I value a different view. And very often, it's easy to say, you're young, inexperienced, you've got nothing else to add, or your views don't matter. I don't think that's true. You may not necessarily agree with them, but even if you don't agree with where their views aim to get you to, you can always distill and extract ideas. And that's how I found it with the youth of today. I think today, if you look at the social new media platforms, I think, as I said earlier, there is a greater desire for the youth to express their views. They want to be included. They want to be not just told what to do, but they want to be consulted on policies. And I think that a lot can be done to harness these views productively. More platforms can be given, and I think these views can be organized, they can be collated, and to the extent that it is not agreed with, I think they should be explained. Because again, the Gen Y, maybe even the Gen Z youths don't take no as an answer, and that's the be all and end all. They want an explanation. And I think that's the degree of engagement that the government should be prepared to do for the youths.
Sorry, Vikram, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I've actually known Ken for, I think, many years, probably since university. But I think, from my point of view, I mentioned as a student I used to enjoy debating. And, I've probably been doing that from the time I was 16. And over the years, I've coached people who are younger than me. So the one thing I'm very comfortable with is I'm very comfortable having people disagree with me. I'm quite comfortable having people, express different views. I think by and large, I'm with the PAP because I agree with most of their policies. But I'm quite happy to talk to people of different views. I don't think, we need to make any, magical special efforts to connect with youth. I think the youth are, probably a lot of people like me. I mean, they're more outspoken. Certainly when I've, worked with, I've seen lots of different generations. The older generation, I think, are, happier with the PAP because they've seen the growth. The youth are more skeptical. A lot of them are better educated. I think some of the young people who come out get, much better paying jobs than their parents, their grandparents could ever have had. But that also gives them more options. They want to be more involved. So, I think the new leadership hopefully will be quite open to that and, welcome the diversity.